On Sunday, April 19th, the USS guided missile destroyer stopped an Iranian-flagged cargo ship called the Touska in the Gulf of Oman. The crew refused to comply with 6 hours of warnings. The US Navy blew a hole in the engine room. US Marines boarded the vessel. And Trump posted on Truth Social, "We are seeing what is on board." Within hours, Trump said what they found was concerning for China. He did not say what it was. He did not release the cargo manifest. He offered no evidence, no photographs, no official intelligence assessment. Just 5 words dropped into the information environment at a precise moment, concerning for China. That phrase was not a slip, it was not a boast, it was a message. Deliberate, calibrated, time to land at a specific moment in a specific negotiation. And understanding exactly why Trump said those 5 words at that exact moment tells you more about the real shape of this conflict than any of the military action happening in the Strait right now. I want to walk you through the game theory, the structural incentives, and the specific leverage dynamics that make this moment genuinely consequential. Because the mainstream coverage is treating this as a dramatic military story, the structural analysis reveals it is a diplomatic story. And the diplomatic story has a timeline. The Beijing summit is in May. The global order is shifting faster than the news cycle can report. Hit subscribe to stay ahead of the curve, because what I am about to show you changes everything. Let me start with what we actually know about the Touska, because the facts themselves are more significant than the coverage suggests. The Touska is an Iranian-flagged cargo vessel. Before its final voyage, it traveled through Chinese ports. According to reporting by Fox News and confirmed by maritime tracking analysts, its route through Malaysian waters is notable. The waters near the Singapore Strait are, in the words of Ray Powell, director of Sea Light Maritime Transparency Initiative, infamous for ship-to-ship transfers due to relatively weak enforcement, a tactic that makes cargo movements harder to trace. The Touska then attempted to run the American naval blockade in the Gulf of Oman, heading to the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas. Here is the specific detail that every serious analyst flagged immediately. Running the American blockade is not a rational decision for a cargo ship carrying routine commercial goods. The risk is enormous. The crew was warned for 6 hours. 6 hours. They refused to stop. They continued toward Iran until the US Navy physically disabled the ship. Powell's analysis was blunt. It tried to run the blockade, which seems like a particularly foolish thing to do, which would seem to indicate that there was something aboard that ship that they really perhaps needed in Iran. Whatever was on the Touska, its crew decided it was worth 6 hours of escalating US Navy warnings, worth having the engine room disabled by gunfire, worth the seizure of the vessel and the detention of the crew. That is not the calculation of a ship carrying consumer goods. The first structural force is what I call the leverage architecture. The Beijing summit is scheduled for May. Trump is traveling to China to meet Xi Jinping, the first US presidential visit to Beijing in 8 years. This summit is happening in a context where American leverage over China has been partially undermined by several simultaneous developments. The tariff reversal revealed that the trade war costs are falling on American consumers. The petrodollar signal from Abu Dhabi suggested that even America's Gulf allies are hedging toward yuan-based oil trade. The Hormuz blockade has been partially defied by Chinese-linked tankers that have already transited the waterway. America needs China's cooperation on 3 specific things before the summit. First, China's influence over Iran to maintain the ceasefire and advance negotiations toward a deal. Second, China's non-interference with the Hormuz blockade, meaning Chinese ships observing American interdiction rather than openly defying it. Third, China's agreement on rare earth export restrictions, which have been throttling American defense manufacturing since Beijing imposed them in response to the tariff war. China knows what it wants from the summit in return: tariff rollbacks, removal of semiconductor export controls, recognition of China's economic interests in the Middle East, formal acknowledgement that the Hormuz blockade does not extend to Chinese commercial shipping. Keep that specific negotiating structure in the back of your mind, because we are coming back to it. Now, in this context, Trump boards the Touska, finds something, and announces to the world that what he found is concerning for China, not concerning for Iran, not concerning for the ceasefire, concerning for China. The second structural force is the information as weapon mechanism. In game theory, there is a concept called strategic ambiguity. It refers to the deliberate use of incomplete information to create uncertainty in the mind of an opponent. The goal is not to inform. The goal is to force the opponent to make calculations under conditions of uncertainty that produce behavior favorable to you. Trump did not reveal what was on the Touska. He announced that something was there and that it concerns China. This forces Beijing into an extremely uncomfortable calculation. If China knows what was on the Touska because China shipped it, then Beijing must now decide whether to acknowledge this or deny it, and both choices carry cost. If China does not know what was on the Touska because it traveled through Chinese ports without Chinese government knowledge, then Beijing must conduct its own investigation to understand what exposure it has before the summit. In either case, China is now operating under uncertainty about what the United States knows, what the United States will reveal, and when. That uncertainty has a specific value in the summit negotiation. It keeps Beijing's negotiators defensive. It creates a potential source of leverage that Trump can either deploy or withhold depending on how the talks progress. The precedent for this kind of information leverage in high-stakes diplomacy is well established in history. In the lead-up to the Cuban Missile Crisis resolution in 1962, Kennedy's team used specific intelligence about Soviet missile sites not just as evidence but as a negotiating instrument, revealing information in sequences timed to maximize Soviet uncertainty about what the United States knew and when it knew it. The uncertainty itself was a form of pressure. The Soviets had to negotiate without knowing the full extent of American knowledge. That asymmetry shaped the terms of the final resolution. Trump is applying a structurally similar logic to the Beijing summit. Not with satellite imagery this time, with a cargo manifest from a ship in the Gulf of Oman, whose contents remain officially undisclosed. The uncertainty is the weapon. The 5 words were the deployment, and the summit is 6 weeks away. Now I want to go deeper, because this is where most people's analysis completely breaks down. The third structural force is the ceasefire paradox, and this mechanism is what makes the entire Hormuz situation genuinely dangerous in a way that the diplomatic language conceals. Trump extended the ceasefire on Tuesday. He called it indefinite, but in the same announcement he maintained the naval blockade. He then ordered the U.S. Navy to shoot and kill Iranian small boats deploying mines in the strait. Iran's Devri Muhafizlar responded by seizing 2 commercial vessels in the strait, the Panamanian-flagged MSC Francesca and the Epaminondas. Iran attacked 3 ships in total. Panama's foreign ministry called Iran's actions a grave attack against maritime security and an unnecessary escalation. The White House press secretary Karoline Leavitt was asked whether Trump considers Iran seizing those 2 ships a ceasefire violation. Her answer was telling, no, because these were not U.S. ships and were not Israeli ships. These were 2 international vessels. Read that answer carefully. The United States is enforcing a naval blockade, seizing Iranian ships, ordering its navy to shoot Iranian boats, and simultaneously maintaining that a ceasefire is in effect. Iran is seizing international commercial vessels in retaliation and simultaneously maintaining that it is responding to American ceasefire violations. Both sides are conducting active maritime military operations against vessels in or near the strait. Both sides are calling the other's operations ceasefire violations. Both sides are simultaneously claiming to be committed to negotiations. This is not a frozen conflict. This is active maritime warfare with a ceasefire label attached to it. Think about what this means for the families of the crews on those seized vessels. The Italian-owned MSC Francesca, flying a Panamanian flag, seized by Iranian forces in the Strait of Hormuz. Not an American ship, not an Iranian ship. A commercial vessel carrying cargo from somewhere to somewhere, caught in a war that neither the ship's owners, nor its crew, nor its flag states started or wanted any part of. Those crews are now hostages in a negotiation that is simultaneously a ceasefire and an active military standoff. Now let me address the argument most commonly made in defense of the American position in the Strait, because it deserves a serious answer before I show you why it ultimately fails to capture the structural reality. The argument is this: the United States is enforcing a legal blockade designed to coerce Iran into a nuclear deal and permanent opening of the Strait. The Touska was warned for 6 hours. It chose not to comply. The seizure is a lawful exercise of blockade enforcement. Iran's seizure of commercial vessels is the action of a regime trying to create chaos to avoid accountability for its nuclear program. America is the responsible party here. Every element of that argument is legally defensible, and it completely misses the structural reality. Here is the reality. The strait is 34 kilometers wide. American destroyers, Iranian fast attack boats, commercial shipping from 37 countries, and Iranian mine-laying vessels are all operating in the same confined waterway simultaneously. The United States has now ordered its Navy to shoot and kill Iranian small boats on sight if they are deploying mines. Iran has responded by seizing commercial vessels. There are 23 ships that have turned around at American instruction. There are hundreds more stranded in the Gulf, with crews who have been at sea for weeks with no clear timeline for resolution. The specific danger in this configuration is not that either side wants escalation. The specific danger is that neither side has a clear mechanism for de-escalation that does not require the other to back down publicly and completely. America cannot lift the blockade without appearing to surrender to Iranian pressure. Iran cannot reopen the strait without appearing to surrender to American coercion. And in the gap between those two political impossibilities, fast attack boats and destroyers are operating at close range in confined waters with shoot-to-kill orders in effect. The historical parallel that keeps returning to me is the Persian Gulf tanker war of 1987 and 1988. The United States reflagged Kuwaiti tankers under the American flag to protect them from Iranian attack. American and Iranian naval forces came into increasingly close contact in the confined waters of the Gulf. In July 1988, the USS Vincennes, operating in a high-stress environment with degraded situational awareness, shot down Iran Air Flight 655, killing all 290 civilians on board. The crew believed they were engaging an Iranian fighter jet. They were not. The Vincennes incident did not happen because anyone ordered it. It happened because the operational environment, fast contacts, confused identification, time pressure, restricted waters, produced a decision error that killed 290 people and nearly restarted a war that both sides had been trying to wind down. The Strait of Hormuz in April 2026 has recreated every structural element of that environment. Restricted waters, multiple naval forces in close proximity, shoot-to-kill orders, high operational tempo, time pressure from a ceasefire that is simultaneously in effect and being violated by both parties. Watch 4 things in the coming days. The first thing to watch is whether Trump reveals what was on the Touska before the Beijing summit. If he releases the cargo manifest or intelligence assessment before May, it signals that he has decided to use this information as a public confrontation tool rather than a private negotiating lever. If he holds it until Beijing, it becomes the most valuable card in his hand at the summit table. The timing of any Touska disclosure will tell you whether the summit is expected to succeed or fail on American terms. The second thing to watch is China's response to the Touska seizure. China has already signaled concern, warning that the seizure could complicate efforts to stabilize the region. Watch whether Beijing formally protests the seizure through diplomatic channels, whether any Chinese official acknowledges knowledge of the cargo, or whether China maintains complete silence. Silence from Beijing on a seizure involving a ship that transited Chinese ports would itself be a signal that Beijing has something to protect in this information environment. The third thing to watch is whether the ceasefire survives another 72 hours. Iran seized 2 ships and attacked a third on the day after Trump extended the ceasefire. Trump ordered shoot-to-kill for Iranian mine-laying boats. The two sides are conducting active military operations against each other's interests while calling it a ceasefire. Watch whether any incident in the strait in the coming days produces casualties, because the first fatality in the strait since the ceasefire was announced will force both sides to make a public choice about escalation that cannot be papered over with diplomatic language. The fourth thing to watch is the Pakistan talks. Trump said envoys would travel to Pakistan for a new round of negotiations. J.D. Vance, who led the previous round, was expected to lead again, but the second round is now uncertain. Iran's negotiating position has shifted since the Touska seizure and the commercial vessel seizures. Watch whether Iran sends a delegation to Pakistan or whether the talks collapse entirely, because a collapsed negotiation combined with an active maritime standoff is the structural configuration most likely to produce the kind of incident that ended the 1988 ceasefire. The structural conclusion is this. The phrase Trump used, concerning for China, is the most important 5 words that came out of this week's events in the Strait, not because of what they revealed about the Touska's cargo, because of what they revealed about Trump's understanding of the real leverage dynamics in this conflict. America cannot force Iran to reopen the strait militarily. The geography makes that impossible without a ground invasion that no one is contemplating. America cannot force Iran to reopen the strait through the blockade alone. 50 days of blockade have not produced the deal. The one party that has the influence to move Iran toward a deal, that has the economic relationships to make Iran's compliance worth its while, and that has the most to lose from an extended Hormuz closure is China. This is the structural insight that the military coverage of the Hormuz standoff consistently misses. The warships are not the primary instrument of American strategy at this moment. They are the context for a diplomatic negotiation whose real location is not the Gulf of Oman. It is a meeting room in Beijing in May. The blockade keeps the pressure on Iran. The Touska seizure creates leverage over China. The 5 words connect the two operations into a single coherent strategy if it works. Whether it works depends on a variable that Trump cannot fully control. China has to believe that the information on the Touska is both damaging enough to matter and reliably enough sourced that denial is not a viable option. If China calculates that the cargo was routed through enough intermediaries that any Chinese connection can be plausibly denied, the leverage disappears. If China calculates that Trump will not actually release the manifest because doing so would complicate the summit rather than advance it, the leverage also disappears. The strength of the gambit depends entirely on Beijing's uncertainty about American intentions. And that uncertainty is something only the next 6 weeks will resolve. 5 words dropped at the right moment into the information environment of a summit negotiation that is 6 weeks away. This is not military strategy, this is information strategy. An information strategy applied correctly at the leverage point of a major power negotiation is often more decisive than any warship in the Gulf of Oman. This is not prophecy, this is structural history combined with game theory. I might be wrong about whether the Touska cargo produces a summit breakthrough or a summit confrontation. I might be wrong about whether the ceasefire holds long enough to matter. If I am wrong, we will come back and analyze why. Save this analysis, come back after the Beijing summit. Check whether Trump revealed the Touska cargo. Check whether China made concessions on rare earths, on blockade compliance, or on Iran. The answers will tell you whether those 5 words were the most effective diplomatic move of this conflict or a gambit that failed. Subscribe if you want to follow this as it develops. Because what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now is not just a military standoff. It is a negotiation conducted by warships. And the cargo manifest of one Iranian freighter may be worth more to the outcome than the entire naval blockade.